Hello there, I am the storyteller, and welcome to my channel. The Blackout. I am typing this in response to the written account of Mr. James Ackert that I encountered on a discussion board on the internet. I have to say, I am slightly elated that I am not the only one to have experienced a terrifying situation that is complicated to digest. My sense of dread has increased, though, that there are still things out there beyond explanation. Not only do these mystifying anomalies occur beyond the lines of civilization, as Mr. Anker has suggested, but they very well happen even at the edge of our doorstep. Danger or evil has no bounds in when and how it will rear its hideous face. I would like to tell my story. It was July 24th, 2015, in the town of Clarkson. The sun was just starting to set. However, despite that, the air was heavy with a sticky humidity that seemed to be boiling still. Many people in the town were indoors, taking refuge in their homes, while more than likely cranking up the air conditioning to battle the suffocating heat. I was driving on my way home from work, with the windows rolled down because my AC broke, and hoped at least the movement of the air would help me cool off. Rather, instead, it just made me more miserable and irritated. I had a lousy day at work by being blamed for an accident that I did not do in the store, and being chewed out by the boss, afterward being subsequently fired on the spot. I then made a right turn to enter the neighborhood that I lived in. I continued for a bit more until I pulled into the driveway of my house. Once pulled into the garage, I rolled up the windows, turned off the car, and trudged my way to the door to enter my home. I opened the door, stepping inside the kitchen, greeted by the cool air which refreshed me. I then shut the door and bumbled over into the living room. I took a seat on my couch. Then took a deep breath and just sat there for a bit, trying to relax from the events of the day. I then went about the time in the evening, first taking a shower, then afterward eating some leftover Chinese food which I had in the fridge from yesterday. Lastly, I plopped back on the couch to watch a movie. I figured that I would take the rest of the week to relax and begin job searching. I was about midway through the film that when suddenly everything turned off, from the TV and to the lights in the other rooms. I sighed and thought there was something wrong with the circuit box. Once my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I got up, then proceeded to go find the flashlight that I kept in a kitchen drawer. Once in my hand, I flicked it on and made my way to the basement door. I then went downstairs to find the circuit box and checked it. There was nothing wrong with what I could tell, and I even changed the breakers with new ones, yet nothing worked. Perplexed, I came back upstairs and decided to look out my living room window to see if the streetlights were off, in case if it was a blackout. Sure enough, the streetlights were out, including all the other nearby houses. The only lights were probably just the illumination of flashlights I saw flickering and waving around in the dark homes. Great, I mumbled to myself. Can things get any worse? At that moment, my cell phone buzzed to life with an emergency system alert that made me jump a little. I quickly pulled out my phone to see the message. It was read as, "This is a message for the following counties of Upton, Fremont, and Leland. There has been a power outage, and power will be back on tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Please, we recommend all residents to stay indoors and make sure your homes are secure. Whatever alternative light sources you have, keep them on hand in your home during the night. Close all curtains and windows. Also, whatever noises you hear, do not, we repeat, do not venture outside." What the heck? I thought. The last half didn't make any sense. What are they not telling us? With that, not wanting to be caught off guard, I proceeded to double check all the locks and windows of my home. I only had my flashlight, so there was nothing else for me to do. I then decided to stay up and watch videos on my cell phone. In the meantime, it was about 10 p.m. did I suddenly hear a frantic banging on my front door. As I got up, I could hear the shrill screams of a woman saying, "Help me! Please, let me in!" I quickly ran to the window of the living room to check outside who it was. I shined my light on the front porch. I could see the woman raising her hand up to shield her eyes from the sudden light, I gasped. Her plaid button-up shirt and denim jeans were cut and ripped with crimson blood sticking to her body. Her long brown hair was a tangled mess, along with being covered with debris like grass and dirt. I rushed over to the front door. However, before I could open it, I heard her scream. There was a heavy thud in front of the door and the sounds of a vicious struggle. Before I could make up my mind, her screams ended in a matter of seconds. The only noise there that came now was the sound of something dragging, most definitely the woman, away. My mouth went dry as I stepped back from the door. I remembered what the emergency alert said about not stepping outside for nothing. I then heard a bang on top of the roof. The footsteps were light, although I could still hear the sounds of claws clicking on the roof. It sounded like it was crawling on all fours. It then stopped. Afterward, there was a soft thump outside, coming from the front, and followed by the galloping sound of something running away. I quickly went into the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife I owned, just in case if I had to fight. I then turned off my flashlight when I then cautiously peeked past the curtains through the kitchen window. I wanted to see if I could catch a glimpse of whatever it was that was just on my roof. Despite it being a relatively cloudless night and a half moon present, my eyes strained to see any specific details. I could gather general outlines of the neighborhood houses and the street. However, there were still great splotches of shadows created by the houses, trees, and other objects. Whatever it had been, it was out of sight. I stepped away from the curtain when I received a call on my phone. It was from my friend Alan, who lives 3 houses down from me. I took it out and answered. "Hi, Al." "Hey, Ben. Didn't you hear a woman screaming?" he asked. "Yeah," I answered. "Do you know anything about it?" "No," I lied, because I was afraid if I told him, he probably would have thought that I was pulling his leg. "Ben, are you okay? You sound shaken," he questioned further. No, just a bit freaked out from the screaming woman," I answered him. "Hey, I don't want to sound strange or anything," Alan said, "but have you heard any other noises?" "Noises?" I asked. "Yeah," he replied. "Not only did the screaming woman wake up my family and I, but I thought I heard something outside." Alan's voice then went silent. "What?" I said. "What the heck is that?" he said to himself. Then there was a breaking sound of a window. "Ah!" I heard Alan shout. "Ruth! Quick, get the kids out of here! Ben, help!" I held my phone in horrified shock as I heard on the other end the hissing and snarling of something attacking Alan and his family. I stood there frozen for a moment. Then before I knew it, I quickly ended the call and bolted for my front door. I swung it open, not bothering to close it. I then slipped and fell forward on my small wooden porch. I quickly got up, glad that I didn't stab myself or lost my flashlight. I glanced at what made me trip. A chill went down my spine when I realized it was a pool of blood. I then sprinted down 3 houses to my left to get to Alan's house. I couldn't help but to notice people peeking out of their windows with their phones out, probably calling the police. I quickly went around the back of the house so if I had to, I could break down their glass screen door to enter. I stepped onto their back patio, having noticed the screen doors were broken. I cautiously stepped inside, shining my flashlight around their kitchen. The kitchen was a mess. I had noticed right away that the house was silent. The strange stillness unnerved me as I feared the worst. I combed the home, almost holding my breath, in uneasy anticipation that the next room that I checked or corner I turned, I would be met with a grisly sight. However, that didn't happen. At most, I only found blood splatter and ripped clothing, along with the house being trashed. No bodies were present on the ground level. However, there was still the upstairs that I had to check. I slowly went up the stairs, being careful not to make any creaking sounds. Once I reached the top, I noticed right away that down the hall a door was opened, and a soft glow of light was streaming from there. I quickened my pace and looked into the room. A single lantern was situated in front of the folding shutter closet door. I could barely hear the soft whimpering coming from in there. "Hello?" I called out. "Who's in the closet?" I then heard a sniff. "Is that you, Mr. Daniels?" came the little voice of the 11-year-old Billy. "Yeah, kid," I answered him as I opened the closet, revealing the pale blonde-haired kid that was now curled up in the fetal position. I then crouched down right next to him and asked, "What happened?" In which the boy just sat up and just hugged me, beginning to cry. "The monsters took them," he kept repeating. "They took them. They took them." I stuffed my knife in between my belt and my waist, then switched my flashlight to my left hand so I could carry Billy out. I lifted him up as he clung to me for dear life. I then made our way out of the house, going out the front door. "Do you think I'll see my family again, Mr. Daniels?" Billy asked as I was just making my way to my house. "Don't worry, kid. The police would probably find them." I then stopped talking because I felt something was watching us. I glanced behind, noticing across the street a shadow ducking behind a bush. With that, I didn't hesitate and began to run home. I then heard the clicking of the claws of something sprinting across the pavement. I ran as fast as I could, and I was just crossing my lawn when the thing pounced on me. Billy, the thing, and I tumbled to the ground as Billy then screamed. I hastily pushed Billy away from me as I wrestled with the creature. I could feel sharp claws cutting at my back, chest, and arms. The thing, from what I could tell, had pale gray skin that felt slimy to the touch, along with a putrid smell like none I smelt before. "Billy, run!" I shouted as I then felt a sharp hit to the side of my head. At that moment, I really thought that I was dying as my vision blackened. The last thing I saw was a pair of beady, white, luminous eyes staring down at me. It was for some time that I was unconscious, until I woke up to the ringing of my cell phone. Before I even opened my eyes, I was punched in the face by the reeking stench of decay and damp earth. I opened my eyes, but I was in complete pitch darkness. It was then, when I attempted to move my limbs, when I realized my hands and feet were bound. I panicked, and squirmed fiercely to reach my phone in my pocket. It took a bit, but I managed to bring it out of my pocket. The blue light of the screen illuminated enough for me to see vines wrapped around my wrists. I quickly shut the alarm off, fearing I might draw attention. I then took a look at the time with my phone. It was 7:30 a.m., which was meant for me to get up to go to work. I also looked at the battery level of my phone. It was 10%, which meant if I were to use it as a light source, I would have to use it sparingly. By the blue screen of my phone, I checked to see if I still had the knife on me. I was glad to find that the knife I had was on me. I quickly made use of it to cut myself free from the restraints. Once done, I turned on the flashlight app from my phone to get a better grasp of my surroundings. My blood ran cold as I finally realized that I wasn't the only one down there in this large earthen cavern. All around me there were bodies of many people. They were all tied up like me, but all piled on each other in small groups. The reason why I didn't notice right away was that I was placed off to the side of the cavern by myself. I quickly looked around and even checked some if they were alive. Unfortunately, from what I could tell on initial inspection, they were cold and stiff. They were probably all dead as far as I knew. I even found the corpses of Alan, along with his wife, Ruth, his two daughters, Allison and Megan, even Billy, the only boy. At that moment, I felt I was about to lose my grip on my sanity. I had collapsed on my knees, not only in sadness, but a sense of defeated anguish. How trivially bad the day started out, and now my friend and his family had been killed by these things. Also, no matter having tried to keep Billy safe, he was now dead. A cruel irony of him wanting to be with his family again. I then heard a hiss behind me. I got up and turned, shining my light at the creature that sat on top of a pile of bodies. It angrily growled as it jumped away from the light and tried to flank me on my right. I shined the light again at it while I leveled my knife to fight it. I had no plans to die in this forsaken place of death, not without going down without a fight. It then hissed as it jumped back. It was then I noticed that it seemed as if it was sensitive to light. Its skin seemed to boil like you would see in those films about vampires when they got exposed to the sun. It then clicked in my head that there was still a slight glimmer of hope for me to get out of here. The sun should be shining right now, and if I could get out of this hellish place, I might just have a chance to get out of this alive. It then made a great leap over my head and landed behind me, in which I turned around wildly, slashing my knife at it. I had cut it across its face, stunning it. My light further burned its skin too. It screeched, then turned and ran away from me. I didn't stick around any longer. I clumsily ran around the cavern, looking for an exit. I found a tunnel and took it, hoping it was the right way. because it probably would not take long for the creature to call his other buddies to help him out, which I had no hopes of fighting off a whole group of those things. I ran haphazardly through the labyrinth of tunnels. There were even some moments I had to crawl in smaller passages. Despite that, I kept going as fast as I could, because I began to hear a pack of them hot on my heels. It was when I made one turn. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. My heart leapt for joy as I ran to it. However, the tunnel was starting to shrink, and I was slowly forced to pace myself at a crawl. Just as I was about to crawl out into the morning light, across the threshold of the tunnel entrance, one of those things grabbed my left leg, tearing at my calf muscle. I cried out in pain as I turned to use my right foot to kick it in the face. It quickly jumped on my back, then began to viciously stab at me with its claws on my right side. I threw my phone forward out of the tunnel, and with my knife I stabbed into the ground to get leverage. I had to pull myself out with every ounce of strength. I propelled myself forward out into the sunlight, just barely escaping the other clawed hands of those creatures. I then pulled my knife out of the ground and turned it on the creature that was fighting me. Its skin was now smoking and burning. It was also screaming in pain. I then wrestled it to the ground, getting myself in a dominant position to keep it from escaping to its own safety of its dark tunnel. In burning vengeance, I held the knife like an ice pick, then launched a furious barrage of my own attacks on it. I kept stabbing it until I couldn't no more. Of course, by that time, I had killed it. With the final stab, I left the knife stuck in it and rolled over off to the side, having collapsed in exhaustion. With the last bit of energy I had left, I crawled over to my phone and called 911 for help. My voice was too hoarse for me to speak clearly, but the operator had gotten the idea that I needed help. The operator dispatched emergency services to my location, using a GPS locator to track my phone signal. As I began to slip into unconsciousness again, I could hear the blades of a helicopter rotating in the distance, drawing to my location. I then woke up in a hospital bed, all patched up from my fight. I was then greeted by a nurse and the doctor who filled me in that a rescue team had saved me in the nick of time, bringing me here to their hospital. During the month as I recovered from my injuries, I was then met with what I suppose two government agents who interviewed me on my experience. I had told them everything that I knew. Once they were satisfied with my interview, they then, in the end, handed me over a check to cover all of my medical expenses for the rest of the month. Before they left, they told me that if anyone should ask me about my injuries, I were to say it was a bear attack, and stick to that so no one would think I was crazy. I hesitantly agreed because, outside of these two, and maybe the other residents of my neighborhood, no one else would believe my story. I still feel the burning sensation of the cuts that I have received that fateful night of horror. It has been about 8 months since then, but the scars on my arms, left calf, back, and front torso have been healed. However, I have now become virtually dependent on pain medications to help me limp around the day and sleeping aids to help lull me to sleep every night. Even then, the sleeping aids can only help so much because I have become to fear the darkness. There have been times I have not gotten even a wink of sleep. The only thing I found that can help me rest, along with sleeping aids, sometimes is to keep my bedroom light turned on throughout the entirety of the night and pray that the lights never go out. Thank you for watching. This has been The Storyteller. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Again, I would like to give a special thanks to the YouTube channel creators named Fantasy and World Music by the Fietchters for allowing me to use their composed pieces of music named Creepy Scarecrows, Trickster Imps, and Deep Spring for the background music in this narration video. Please check out their channel if you would like and even subscribe to them too. Link in the description below. Hi there. If you are interested, please check out my Wattpad page. There you will find a written version of my stories in case you prefer to read it, rather than hear it. Please leave comments there too if you choose, share my page, and follow me. I would be very grateful if you do. I also have a Buy Me a Coffee page, so if you would like, you can support me by buying me a cup of tea. Any little support means a whole lot to me, because that means I can pursue what I love to do, which is to make and tell stories. Links to both of my Wattpad and Buy Me a Coffee pages will be provided in the description below. Again, this has been The Storyteller, and thank you for listening.